Driveline R&D, podcast episode 80. This is Alex Caravan, director of data science, drinking a War Child. Low-key, a kind of strong IPA. I drank 2 or 3 of these a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
Definitely got
I saw when you got those. I was
definitely
like,
got
okay.
into Balmer Peak.
Good
Lindley.
job. Kyle Lindley, Pulse Product Manager, drinking a Bud Light Lime. Classic, Driveline Classic. Pre-gaming for Kit Moore tonight. Oh, no. We got it twist off.
And I'm Anthony Brady, director of sports science, Driveline Baseball, primary host, Driveline R&D Research and Drinks podcast, episode 80. Good to have you back, Caravan.
Oh, yeah.
Also joined today by guest, director of pitching from Driveline Baseball, Bill.
Thanks for
Just
having
pronounce it for me so I don't fuck
me.
it up.
It's Hezel.
Bill Hezel.
Yes.
There
Yes.
we go.
Let's
And
go,
I
baby.
am
That was Dept.
Everyone listening.
Let
Yeah,
me get that
everyone-
beer.
I am crushing a Yingling lager. Shout out Pennsylvania
Let's
and
go.
the fine folks at Yingling.
Let's go.
What one comment on first off, Driveline Plus code, good to learn 25.
Oh, yeah, use that.
Number 2, and 5. So GOOD, the number 2. And then, the rest you can figure it out.
Yeah. Also, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about on recent pods, they are up on Plus.
Yeah.
So like some of the things that we talked about last week with Ben and Jared, some of the jump study, force play related things, those write-ups and articles are up on Plus. You can go read a little bit more of that. What are other things that we talked about? Oh, like the Was and Besky episode, talking about energy flow and pitching. A lot of write-ups are up on Plus there too.
We're just be pumping out. We actually have one thing that is going to be out is the College War dashboard. Me and Besky just got it up today. So that'll actually be for free on Plus. Just get it by an email. But yeah, we'll put the code into bio as well. And we may or may not give away a Driveline Plus subscription for when we hit 600 subs. So we'll talk about that, but just keep it in the back of your mind.
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, really helps us.
Yeah, more subs, more giveaways.
Stop following Lindley, follow me. Brady doesn't matter.
Dude, I think it might actually be working. You're gaining followers on me, and I think that's why. That's the only reason why, for sure.
I keep getting these notifications on my phone. Like 20 people have seen your LinkedIn profile, but it's like, dude, if you're trying to talk to me on LinkedIn, I go on there once every 2 months. I've seen Bill Loki post some stuff on LinkedIn, which we definitely underutilize as a company.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed like Bodie and a couple other homies post on it pretty regularly, and just figured, I mean, it's easy to just creating the content.
I need to
share
do
on
that.
all platforms or whatever.
Dean did a comparison of like people in baseball, various categories. Like he saw that some groups have more people on LinkedIn than they do on Twitter. So
Really?
it's a good
Wow,
way to get-
dude.
One comment I was going to make on last week's episode, by the way, Skolnicki still has almost his fully uneaten Ben and Jerry pint in the freezer. I don't know if you saw what they did. They tried to kill a pint.
Really?
And I mean, Lindley, again, I shouted you on Twitter too. Unbelievable performance.
It's pretty good.
I was saying I was glad I wasn't on an episode, because I think if I was, I would have been down to race you and just absolutely ruined it.
Yeah, that's why I just
still
don't
would've
get
been
ice cream.
there.
I just don't have ice cream in the house because that's the shit I do all the time.
Yeah.
Dude, I felt terrible well after that. That's like by far the least
I thought you were playing, dude. I thought you were like, oh my God, 1,200 calories.
No,
dude. This is so...
Dude, afterward, because when I was trying to like rip the edits and then upload it really quick, like I was like over there at the table just like
burping into the
dude,
monitor.
I just want to take a nap, bro.
Yeah.
Just 1,300 calories throughout that episode and then talking a lot.
But, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you kick it off? I honestly don't know that much about your background before Driveline. So I mean, with most of our guests,
And director of pitching, I don't know how we made that clear.
Yeah.
You just went, Bill, I don't know how to pronounce. Go ahead and fill in the rest for me.
Pitching, yeah.
I mean, I'll try to give the short version because I'm old and the route here is kind of weird. But I've been here for 4 years now. It'll be 4 years like next month, I think. I mean, year 4. But obviously played, wasn't very good. I mean, it was fine, but wasn't very good. And then
in college,
yeah.
What was your arsenal like?
I was like pretty
And
two-seam
average
slider
distance.
heavy. Oh, with that, I have no idea. I don't know. On a good day, I'd maybe like run it up to like 89, 90, but I was mostly like
gas.
87, 88. Threw a ton of sliders. Had some pretty good sweeps. Some guys have seen. I can still throw that a little bit. But it's pretty much like two-seam slider heavy. And yeah, I was basically the same player I was in high school, in college. So I was like a tiny bit better. And
You're throwing 89 in high school?
88, touch 88 in high school.
Holy shit, dude. That's actually gas.
And Yeah, that's honestly like one of the things that pushed me to get into coaching was just like, I felt like I worked pretty hard, but like always felt lost. Like I always felt like I worked hard. I just like never knew what to do. This was like very much a long time ago, pre where you could just go on the internet and find anything.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like, there wasn't even like MPA stuff going on yet at that point, and I felt like going into college, like, oh, touching 88 now in 4 years, it's going to be like punching fives or whatever. And I just like barely got any better. And I was just like, this just doesn't make any sense for someone who wanted to like work hard. I just like always felt lost and felt like I was never close to reaching like my actual true talent level. And that's kind of like the thing that like pushed me to get into coaching or whatever. But it took a while because right when I graduated, I took a job in sales and did that for a long time. I think I was working in corporate sales for like 7 years while also coaching. But I started coaching junior college ball. That's kind of where I started to get into some Driveline stuff. After my first year coaching, I realized that like I wasn't actually making anybody better. And so I wanted to start investigating how I could do that. And the funny thing about how I even like stumbled across like Kyle's blog was I was actually Google searching for anybody that knows MPA stuff and like some Tom House stuff. I was searching info on like drag lines because like that was like a big thing.
Yeah, dude.
It was like the guy's drag line.
Dude.
And I didn't know like how to even search it up because like I hadn't heard about that being talked about before when I was playing.
Yeah.
And, for good reason, obviously.
Dude, that was the OG one. I remember at like an NPA clinic or something, like the first time seeing that.
What's
like
NPA?
National Pitching Association.
NPA.
It's Tom House's original thing before it was like RDRBI or whatever. All that. But yeah, the toe drag one was like, I remember him drawing the line in the middle of the rubber and being like the end of the toe drag should finish on that. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and like these guys, it almost looks like a question mark and all that stuff.
It's like, it doesn't matter which direction it goes as long as when it comes off the ground, it ends. So like, it's a good thing. So dude, I used to do that when I was pitching. Like first thing I would do would get on the mound I would like draw that line down the middle, throw a couple warm up pitches and then like look back and be like, toe drags. Toe drags. Toe drags in the middle. I'm going to be good today.
So I literally just searched like drag line baseball or whatever. And there just like wasn't
Drag
much,
line?
but like literally Driveline came up or whatever. So I just,
We gotta lean into that, dude. We should just rebrand.
Yeah, dude.
so I just started reading like, I was just like, what is this? I just like read one of the blogs that like Kyle had wrote. There wasn't that many on the site at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, oh, this is super interesting to me. And I don't know, I just got like really into reading as much as I possibly could. And right around that time was when I started to realize like, oh, I like coaching. I definitely don't like doing corporate sales regardless of like what it pays and if it's good. And and then I just started incorporating that stuff with the junior college I was at. We were really, really good. I had was lucky enough to have a head guy that just like gave me full autonomy to do whatever I wanted. So we like slowly implemented stuff, and then I moved to a D3, brought stuff there, and things went really well there. And then just randomly, I got an email from Mike, and he was just like, "Hey, we'd like to bring you on board or whatever."
That was post, wasn't it? Or
No, I was at so I was at Northampton Junior College. And then I was at DeSales, so
okay.
both in Pennsylvania. Yeah,
Okay.
And then I just randomly got an email from Mike, and he was just like, "Hey, we really like what you're doing, and like some of the stuff you're putting online is really great. Like, would you want to like come on board?"
Did you have your own blog, or was it socials?
Just socials, just putting stuff out on like Twitter and Instagram. And honestly, it was like less about promoting myself. It was more just like I was trying to like get recruits.
Yeah.
I was trying to like show that like that's literally how my recruiting pitch would be. I'd be like, come watch us practice and then go and take your other visits, and you tell me what place is going to get you to like throw harder, be better, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of similar almost to what Oach was doing then.
Mm-hmm.
Like just putting out.
Very similar. Very similar.
And catching. And back in OG days where Mike was personally reaching out and interviewing people.
Yeah.
Remember Mike like even like only like 3 years ago was like interviewing people for like strength intern jobs or something stuff.
Yeah, and
Dude, he was the point of contact.
Yeah, just randomly emailed me, and I was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I want to do." And but it was going to require me. This is a whole nother convo about how I was managing like a full-time sales job and coaching. it was not fun. I did my first interview with Sam while I would like I would set up a VPN on my laptop. I would log in and then just get in my car and like go on recruiting trips or like drive to the field or whatever. And like my boss would think I'm still in the office.
Oh, wow.
I'd be like changing in my car. I rear-ended somebody one time getting dressed in my car. My interview with like Sam was, I left work. So I was in a suit. And while he was interviewing me, I was in a Wawa parking lot changing into like baseball stuff to go to a recruiting event. And it was, it was,
That hypes me up.
it was wild. I flew out here, interviewed, really wanted to do it. But at the time, I was married, house, I was making really good money. And it was like, all right, I got to sell my house, move across the country for like less money. Is this something that I want to do? And it wasn't just about me at that point. I had to convince my wife at the time and make sure that was like something that was doable. But yeah, it was just, bet on yourself, and like just felt good enough about like what this place would afford me and the opportunities and like how quick I could learn, and just knew that like, just bet on yourself, whatever. And then 4 years later, now I'm the director of the department.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty similar origin story for me. Initial interviews of Driveline, because I was at my old job, which was in healthcare consulting. Like I was working as a database analyst, but healthcare consulting. And I knew I wanted to go into, like I'd been planning to go into sports the whole time, but I was like 2 years out of college, all this work, clear my student debt, like make like decent money without like, like I know you obviously everyone knows you take a pay cut when you go to sports. And I was just like, I just like complete shotgun sprayed like applications everywhere. So there was one day, the first time I talked to Kyle, I had 4 interviews that day, and I was in the office. And what I would do is like, I would schedule like the DGAF interview during lunch, and just go to the like this small like gym in like the 6th floor building where we shared it with like 12 other companies, and just hop on a bike and get like a bit of a casual workout while on an interview. Yeah. And then otherwise I was just pop like the 4 is the most I've ever had, but like I literally popped out. I would just pop out, walk around the building on the phone. And I remember interviewing with like Bodie at like 5 o'clock, and I already done like 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and like 3 or something. But I was gonna ask you, so I mean, like pitching, obviously one of the original things Driveline kind of first started becoming known for. Like people didn't know we had like a developed hitting department, even as recently as a couple of years ago, I think. But yeah, like just general pitching department, like kind of growth. How have things changed since you came on board? Because I mean, we know how different things work, but for the audience, it's definitely been like quite an evolution.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, especially since I spent a lot of time in Arizona this offseason. Just like how many big leaguers that we have in the facility, both here and there, is pretty crazy when you think about how many we had even just 3 years ago or whatever.
Or guys that weren't big leaguers.
100%. Just
that are big leaguers now. Like that. That's one of the things that like is so crazy to me. When we found the old velo sheet the other day from like lab tracking stuff, we were just like flipping through, and it's just like, oh my god, like a lot of these names are just like big leaguers now, and we have all their like data from 2 or 3 years ago. It's pretty fire.
Yeah, even just like just the systems to apply the data that we collect are just like light years better. Like I remember we used to have our floor meetings. We'd have multiple ones in a week. Like my first year here, and I remember some of them were like simply dedicated to like athlete results related stuff. Like, what drill should we implement with this athlete? Should he do like janitors, or should he do regular drop steps? Like, should we mocap this guy or not? Like, should we have him do this type? And like all of those decisions are like now have like logic behind them, are like much more automated. Like I and like almost everything here, that's like the genesis for how all of those things happen. Like I literally remember going to Sam when I first started taking over like MLB training stuff from him, and was working with I forget who, but the team sent him, and just being like, I think we should do regular drop steps, and like here's why, and blah blah blah. And me and him just being like, why are we like having this conversation? Like we could just like why don't we just like figure out what drills do what, or what we think they do, test it, and like build the system. And then like the same time we were having that conversation, like you were having that same thought. I remember like going to Joe and being like, could we do this? And he was like, yeah, we could. Like we should sit down and talk. And then we just like started the buckets thing or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And that's kind of how like everything happens here, you know.
We were in Toronto when that got finished, or when like Anthony made the post about it. I remember you were so gassed up about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So far.
When we like did our assessments that day, went back to the place so we could do our processing. I actually think it may have been the travel day. So we're going to the airport, and the whole time you're just like heads down on your phone checking out the buckets results.
Yeah, I was fired
Which we
up.
also worked on overseas in Thailand. Like good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Travels
people
well.
sleep, dude. If me and Brady hadn't gone sick as dogs for half our Thailand trip, the buckets work will probably have come out like
Yeah.
2 weeks later.
But also, dude, also Thailand was big for buckets and big for edge.
Yeah.
OG,
The
OG.
visualizations?
Yeah, the visualization.
Which
I
I
was
got a
like,
shout out on the Cubs broadcast.
Yeah.
I think yesterday. I think
yeah.
last
Yeah.
night. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
yesterday,
this will
Was
be
it the Cubs? Wasn't it fast?
so it'll be Wednesday night. What's up?
Oh, what?
No, that was on ESPN, but the homie Lance
Sprouse.
used the
Oh,
used the
Lance
blob
did?
on.
Because the visuals, the actual like spin visualizations got on.
Yeah, Sunday night
Sunday night?
baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the days when Caravan was super sick in Thailand, I went to like that coffee shop thing that had Wi-Fi down the road, and I remember it was clutch because York was up really late, so
Yeah.
it worked out because I got some like VPN creds from him to VPN to the remote server, like one of them, like Cerberus or whatever, and that's when I set up like the automated pumping out the visuals when it was like first going live for like all the pictures.
Yeah, dude. Even the like all three of us, and I mean, you obviously like were like, you know, supplementary. A part of it is just like we were all on the OG like tour of America stuff.
Oh, dude,
Just
yeah.
remember like
Boca?
how many hours we spent and like having to like be up to like 4 a.m. and like
Oh my God.
But
Dude.
Boca deserves a whole episode.
Boca is like,
It deserves an entire.
Boca
That could be a
Raton,
bonus episode.
dude. The one my like favorite.
That one's got to go on Patreon.
Well, my favorite PG story of that one is it's like 2:30 a.m. We're working on reports or whatever, and we know we have a fuck ton of work left to do, and we remember the IHOP order. We like
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah.
We agreed to
Yeah.
order IHOP, and we order it, and it takes forever. It took like an hour and a half or something to the point where we all forgot about it.
Yes.
And then so it's like 3:30, 4 a.m. We're still in the middle of just like working on reports for meetings the next morning. And there's like a knock on the door. And like we're delusionally tired trying to work through it. And we forget that it's just like, oh, holy shit, we ordered IHOP like 2 hours ago. And so the food finally gets
Like
there.
40
and we eat.
pancakes waiting at
Yeah.
the door or whatever.
And we're like, all right, well, I guess this is like kind of breakfast before the meetings we have in like 4.5 hours.
But just like all of the amount of work that went into that is now cut in
Yeah.
more
A
than
press of a
you know what I
button
mean? Like
sometimes.
just the systems, and then I think like I was thinking about this last night in terms of like the department and the framework and stuff is like as much as we've gotten poached and we've lost a ton of guys, you know, over the past couple of years. I mean, my pitching department alone over the last year has lost. I think it was something crazy like 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah.
We still have like some really like we have one like the guys that we have that have been are just like absolute killers, you know, like Langen, you know, Juan, like we've got like the staff is like full of killers, but the majority of them have like been with us for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that's like really, really helpful because one, the training is just like unbelievably good, you know,
Yeah.
like if you come in and train with like Chris or Juan or Steve or Poole or just like any of our guys,
Yeah.
I mean, they're some of the best pitching minds like in the world.
Oh,
but
yeah.
also because they've been here so long, they're very good at identifying like, oh, this should be a process. This should be a system.
Yeah,
Oh, we could
that's what I
speed
was
this
saying,
up.
too.
We could
Yeah.
iterate on this. And you lose some of that when there's like a ton of turnover. And I'm just really happy that we found a way while getting poached and losing so many guys to still keep a core group of dudes that are just like
Yeah.
absolutely insanely good. you
It's
know?
been really impressive from the R&D department and not spending a ton of time on the floor, especially anymore. It's like when guys like Jiggers or Rob or Sam whatever leave, it's like it's hard not to feel like, oh man, like is that really going to hurt us or whatever? But even like 2 or 3 years later after leaving or losing Sam in 2019, right? It's like
2019, yeah.
we still like all these new guys that came in are just incredible trainers now, and we really have just like been able to keep up with developing the coaching and everything. So
Yeah, I think it's a huge testament to the EDU side, specifically
yeah,
on ramping.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
like you can come here as a coach and just learn more in your first week than you would like in a year's worth of coaching at any other, place.
Dude, that's what hooked me when I came out. The line that I'll never forget that like is 100% true that Bodie told me, like that, like, I don't want to say convinced me to work here because he was just like, you'll learn more about pitching in 6 months than you would in 6 years.
Oh yeah. I think that was literally on the like original application form.
And I was like,
I remember that too.
gotta.
I for sure remember that.
Yeah. I remember going home, like flying back and telling my wife, and I was just like, look, I don't know if you were to rank the top 100 coaches or people that like work with pitchers, I'm not in there, but I will be.
Yeah.
If we do this.
Yeah.
Like 100% positive this will happen. And
your rep just pulls out a list. Got your 97.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I didn't realize, like, at that time, completely naive to like one, if I was good or not to begin with, but also like where the state of coaching was pitchers
relatively,
like at all, but like, I still think that holds true. I still think like as like teams have started to push a little bit and gotten a little bit more progressive, there's other facilities, like I still think that holds true. You come here and you're just going to learn more about both the science and art of pitching here faster.
I think in all sides of the
anywhere
company
else.
too.
Yeah, 100%.
Like even like interdepartment, whether you're in R&D, CR, like pitching, hitting, HP, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I bet the people in CR, the amount of stuff we talked about a little bit with Jared about the amount of stuff you have to like support over there and like help customers with, answer questions, everything. The amount is probably like alone getting you pretty close to to some of the better coaches,
Yeah. Just think about like,
at least in terms of knowledge.
I thought about it last night. Like you think about just someone like, I mean, you could list any number of people at the company, but like think about someone like Besky, like when he started here, if you would have said, hey, this dude's going to like build a tool that helps us like visualize biometrics. You'd been like, no, he's not. But he just taught himself, used the resources that were available here, and just like built himself into the person he is now. And like that's just how it is for like Chris and just like Paul, like all of these guys, you know. And there's just not really any other place that like that happens that I know of in baseball.
We're able to be so efficient with those like onboarding and EDU things because we know where to, like, I think a huge piece of it is knowing where to tell people like not to look or not to worry about, kind of a thing, like especially on the biomech side. It's like we've already gone down that path, we know there's not much there, like this is where the real like valuable signal is. There's a lot more important things here, where I mean a lot of other experiences, I guess, like this, where you're trying to get better at coaching and whatnot, I mean it's a lot of theories that are not necessarily proven and checked out, and we're just so hard on ourselves about what we do that we're like constantly checking and seeing like, do we actually know this? That helps us just like, okay, cross that off the list. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole or just assume that like this theory of mechanics or whatever is a thing. We can just learn faster.
I think that also like ties into some of the other stuff we wanted to like talk about or whatever, which is just like, I think one of the other big changes between when I first started to now is just that like we've gotten to a point where like we are very good. I mean, we're the best at training athletes, and now with both college and pro guys, like the focus, at least for me and what I try to push to the staff, is just that like the fucking on-field results just like matter. Like it's not good enough to like get a dude throwing harder here. Because like that just does not matter unless he does it where it counts. Like the game is played on the field, and like the off-season training and all the stuff we do with these guys like is a huge part of that. But like it just, your job is not executed unless they like take that to the field, and that's really hard because there's so much noise and like confounding factors.
So many things to control.
So many things. But like that just like, especially now that we have like the advantage plan, we're working with so many more guys in season, we at least have like slightly more control over that stuff and can impact it. And for me, like that's the thing that like we are focusing on more than ever. It's just to like, we talk about it all the time. Like, this dude added like, I don't know, stuff plus on his breaking ball went from like 75 to like 125. And it's like, it's great. Who cares unless it like works in a game, And if it doesn't, then we need to figure out what we can do to better make sure that translates.
And I think that serves as like validation too. Like we spend a bunch. I think one of the things that's changed the most in the last 2 years is like having that BB Ops support, right? Like we built advanced scouting reports. We have in-season deliverables to give to people when like previously we were like almost a player development only, come here during off season, go as ham as possible on adding velo, maybe try a couple different things. Like now we have, day-to-day deliverables with our athletes, and our advanced plan is growing too, which, I want to hear you talk about. But I mean, just completely different like breadth as well versus just like velo, maybe some rehab, maybe a little bit of like, performance in weight room. Now it's like we can develop your whole arsenal. We can track that longitudinally. We can give you like command plus. We can give you intended zones. We can give you all this stuff. So I mean, like how is the for the audience, like what is the advanced plan? What do people get, and how has that grown?
Yeah, so like much of everything here, which we just were like talking about a little bit off air or whatever, is just that like it almost always starts with like one athlete. We have one athlete that is just like, hey, I want to do this. We want to try something with this one athlete, and then it works really well, and all of a sudden we just realize like, oh, we should just do this for.
It just makes sense for
it just makes sense to like, oh, we should try this with this person. We should do this with this person. So that's kind of how the advantage plan started. Was just one. It started really by like having the BB Ops support and firepower to like support in-season type stuff. But
which
then
also
it just
got poached. Our BB Ops department.
But then it just grew into like, all right, it's we had a athlete and now we have several that were just like, I don't want you to just help me in the off season. I want all of the support in season. And that's kind of where the advantage plan grew. So now that includes in-season training, which could mean a variety of different things and often means different things for different athletes. Sometimes that means we continue to write all of their throwing programming, which again, part of the reason I have to be a little elusive on, media requests and podcasts and stuff is because half the athletes I work with I can't talk about. But I have some athletes that I literally write all of their throwing program. Everything that they do in the season is like directed or somewhat informed by me or Chris or whoever. For some others, that might just mean, they wear pulse and we monitor that and we make sure that their workload stays within the range that we want. For some guys, maybe they're cool, they're chilling with their throwing programming and we're more giving them like arsenal support during the year. So, delivering them post game or advanced stuff to help them game plan for their opponent. So it involves a lot of stuff, but we've now gotten to the point where we are basically almost like a year-round kind of pitching coach for an athlete or a hitter. I know Dudo is like often referred to it as like, hey, we're like your caddy or whatever. But one of my guys, Alex Cobb, like I think he recently did an interview and he's like, it's just really valuable to have someone like totally unbiased, objective, that's like 100% in your corner that you can just go to be like,
not getting paid by the team.
Yeah, how do I go about attacking this hitter, this game? What did you see? What do I need to work on between starts?
Just really knows you
everything
as a pitcher.
Yeah, 100%. And the reality is some teams either don't have like the firepower to do that. They don't have like, they're not big on the analytics, if you want to call that. Like there's a variety of different things, but also too, like, especially if you're like a reliever or even if you're a starter, like there's so many other arms and athletes on the team that like
they got to worry
R&D,
about everyone else,
the coaches, they have to support that. Like it's really difficult for a team who wants to give any pitcher like 100% focus, sit down with them after every outing and be like, here's your post game, here's what I got, here's the advance for the next outing, here's how we should attack these guys, this is what I saw in my camp. Like it's really difficult for a team to support that, and that's where we come in, and that's what we do for every arm that we work with.
So many more loopholes to jump through too. I mean, I like plenty of our employees have worked for MLB teams. I haven't, but just talking to them, I hear all the time like stories like, okay, well, like so and so gave a report to this person, but like the pitching coach got pissed, and like that's more important than like whether or not that player got better or got more information that they needed. Like it's rather than like, okay, you need to fix that system to deliver them the information. Then it's more about like, that's actually my job, even though I don't care about those numbers or look at that stuff.
Right.
That's what's my job. So if I'm not gonna do it, like nobody can do it. Like it's just so much bureaucracy, which I've noticed. Just talking to MLB teams, even like 2018 winter meetings. The time I probably interacted with most of MLB teams and are like, we were pitching our deliverables. There was just like so many loopholes for people to jump through.
Yeah.
Whereas like we are, I mean, obviously not like 100%, but like fairly merit based, and we're like very open minded to anyone can come in, prove that whatever they put out like works, is valuable. Then we're going to deliver it to athletes.
I think like even something as simple as like the post game stuff that we deliver is just like, it's just like invaluable to these guys. Like you just think about like how, that's the one thing I've learned probably over the last year or so working with so many guys in season. It's just like how fucking hard the game is, you know? Like I have one athlete in particular who like going into the season, I'm just like, we're getting fucking Cy Young votes. Like we're good. We're ready to rock. And then like you break down like, and then, you break down like, all right, what's the anatomy of like somebody who wins the Cy Young or whatever? It's like, all right, it's definitely probably a sub 3. They're definitely punching out like at least 10 per 9. They're probably like top 3 to 5 in the league in these categories. And then you start thinking about like how hard that is to do
at that level.
It's so crazy
for that long.
It's so hard. But like you think
Don't
about
get injured, no slip ups.
You think
That's
about
the thing
like
Jake said,
it's just so hard, and you just realize, how many outings can a pitcher who's like really good, like a pitcher who's like a top 5 or 6 arm, like ends up giving 5 runs, or giving up 5 runs. Like it just happens all the time. So like the post game deliverables, I think are just like even that alone is worth, the cost of like being an advantage plan person, because like. I just think it's really important to know after an outing, objectively, did I throw good or bad? Why or why not? What are the things I need to fix? And a lot of teams just like don't provide that for the reasons we talked about, But to be able to like talk to one of my guys after a good or a bad outing and be like, all right, these 2 hits were luck, right? Like these were flares, or hey, this was a highly graded pitch in a really good spot, executed exactly, and like.
You just
it's
got
Juan
beat.
Soto. He just beat you.
You just got
whatever.
beat.
You just got beat.
Yeah,
and
don't change. Like, that's
or like, hey, the spin direction on your slider shifted slightly, and we kind of subbed out some backspin for some side spin or whatever, and like the movement profile changed. So the priority in our side sessions this week is to like get the shape back on the slider. Here's like a visual for that. Here's like Edgertronic footage that we have cataloged, so you can go back and look and remember how it's coming out of hand. But we need to get that dialed for the next start. Like that stuff is just unbelievably valuable, and a lot of teams just like can't or don't provide it for a variety of reasons, or maybe they don't have someone that can deliver it to the athlete in a way that they can, take action on or whatever. And like we just deliver that to every advantage plan big leaguer that we have. Every one of my guys just gets a post-game report with certain things highlighted with like detailed notes from me after literally the next day. They get that, And even that alone, that doesn't even account for like the game planning stuff and all of the other things. But like, I just think that stuff is so important, and is also just the best way to make sure that the things we worked on or added or improved in the off season get maintained and are monitored. It also helps validate our own training, right? Like if we're working on someone's command, then we like need to know if it was good, like, all right, well, he's commanding it better in the off season. Like, does that translate? And like, how can we help that? And I don't know. But I think that's like the biggest takeaway from a lot of it for me. It's just like how hard the game is. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. I feel like the advantage plan, like almost moved us up into this different, like,
type of clients.
Yeah. Or just like echelon in terms of like the company that we are and the space that we operate in. Cause like previously it was definitely more of the just like, you come to us, we boost up like your raw assets, and then we send you out the door, and like
factory.
We'll check in, we'll like check in, see what's good, but like you're kind of on your own, when you're out there, kind of a thing. It was like, we're going to get you to throw harder on the hitting side. We're going to get you to like swing faster, hit the ball harder, that kind of thing, but all the other stuff. And especially nowadays, I mean, back a few years ago, that was pretty rare as is, but now there's just velo gyms or training places all over that kind of have that. And the academy the advantage plan is kind of just like what's separated that, right? Because it's gone from, yes, you come here and train, we're going to work on all your like raw assets, make them a little better, all that stuff. But now it just goes beyond that to where like when you leave here, we're still by your side, kind of like helping you along the way that no other like, private company outside of like an org is really doing,
And and we're talking about like, some pretty high profile guys in a lot of cases. We're talking about people like maximizing their value when they're getting paid like tens of millions of dollars. And I mean, it really, and then also optimizing them up for that next contract, which we've seen with past clients.
It also has like really challenged me personally, and I think like the rest of our staff on like the art of pitching and less about the science, because in the season, in the off season, you're
It's
not
safe.
dealing with
It's
performance
easy.
anxiety. You're not
Yeah.
dealing with slumps. You're not dealing with, well, maybe you are like, in some
it
respects,
doesn't
but, like,
matter,
it's just not the same.
We can take a deload. Let's take you're in a bit of a
so, like,
deficit.
now
Three
you're
more
dealing,
design sessions, all good.
yeah. And now you're just dealing with the art of it, and like, like,
we got
it's
to win
just different.
tomorrow night.
It's just,
you have to be.
It's different, and it's also challenged me, and I think the company as a whole, because it's forced us to have to solve some problems for some of our athletes, like in season, which we've never had to do before. Like, oh, this guy's like really struggling with command.
Oh yeah.
Okay, how can we help him from right here in Kent, Washington, and he's in whatever state he's in? Like, how can we help him right now? And we can't be there to physically train him. How can we, like, those are problems that we've never really had to face before,
Or been able to.
or been able to. And now hey, he's back on the bump in 6 days. We got to figure it out very quickly. And he's like asking us, like, it's forced us to face some really difficult problems and challenges. And then just like anything, we solve them. And then that becomes a new thing, right? That becomes like a new product, a new deliverable, something we look at, and now we train in the off season or whatever. So I think like we only get better at training athletes the more guys we get on the advantage plan. And I've said it before too, the biggest benefit is like coming back. Like, I've said this to agents and players, but like I'm multiple times to a couple guys specifically, but just like, the results are really good in year one. I am going to be better at training you in year two.
More data,
infinitely
longitudinal
better.
tracking.
Yeah. I know exactly what you need. I know, like, I'm going to be infinitely better. And I think that's like bared out by some of our like longer term guys, like Dillon Tate or some of these other guys where they're like consistently getting better. But like, I think a lot of that is just like different than training them in the off season.
Yeah. That's an interesting. I hadn't really thought of that. Kind of like that. There's like these new problems to solve, because I do actually think that we've faced those types of things before. It's just that they weren't problems because of the nature of like training here. Like if a guy is in the middle of training and we have like a plyo velo scheduled or like pull down and his arm's like not feeling great, we can just bang it. Like that's like totally fine. But like in season, if that happens, that's just like unacceptable. That like can't happen, and we have to be able to prepare for that. So I feel like we used to be able to be like a lot more maybe aggressive, take some more risks on things, just because of the nature of like it being a safe training environment, and we're just trying to like mainly get your velocity up and that type of thing. But now the focusing more on the in-season stuff, like going beyond when they're just here,
Completely different.
Those things are now problems, when in the past we could just be like, oh, it's cool, just like let's do a deload and then hit it next week.
Even stuff like a reliever loses feel for his like slider or whatever. Well, like that happens here. It's just like, oh, we'll bang lives. We'll go we'll go do PDs. Here, I'll set up the Edgertronic and we'll
put
try
everything
these
on
grips
pause
or whatever. In season, it's like I might throw again tomorrow. I'm not going to throw us, but between now and my next appearance, I'm not going to be able to get on the bump.
And my job could be on the line.
How do I fix this pitch without any
That's where all the longitudinal data that you were just talking about, Anthony and Jared have talked about it a bunch, about how like it's just a snapshot. What if you did worse this year, did better this year, whatever. If we have some like, or started off the year worse or better, like we have all this data, including biomechanics, what your edgertronic to see how your release is, etc. And then you can just like go back to that if like you don't have your slider or whatever. It's like, okay, let's look at this footage. Can you get some more footage and see what you're doing now? And then just like go back to it if you need to.
Yeah.
It's like not only just to like, prep you for the next season so that you have this data in the past 2 years to make the plan better in the off season, but it can also just be used as like a checkpoint. It's like, okay, let's go back to there and reset.
Yeah, that way you don't like overcorrect one way or the another. You know, you just kind of like know. I mean, like the Tate example is really fire, just because the
Which you wrote a blog about. You guys did an interview
Yeah.
with
yeah
I
the
forget the
Locked
podcast's
on
name.
Orioles.
Locked
Yeah.
on, yeah. The it was kind of nice with his because the consistency of the times that he did it, like each year was within like the same month of each other. So
Yeah,
it's like
it was
we
by
got
design.
we got a pretty good look like at each one of those time points of where things are at. And I mean, that was one of the things I feel like years ago where I was talking about, you know, the best way the biomechanics is deployed at like the really elite level is that monitoring system. Like that kind of just like it's a checkpoint that you can go back to if you fall back, like because the biomechanics stuff started out, we've talked about it before, where it's just like we're getting athletes that come here that have a problem and are paying to fix the problem. Like that's the selection bias that is walking through our door. So our applied biomechanics perspective has to be really focused on, yeah, we're trying to make a change with you and do things. But at the elite level, those guys are already, you know, I mean, he's coming in and already throwing really, really hard. And so in his case, whether it's velocity changing for the better, which it did, but regardless, we just know how he already performed when he was like 92, 93. And if it got worse at any point, we could kind of like correct, you know, according to that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and he's also a good example of like having now worked with him for multiple off seasons, and he's been here multiple off seasons. Like the way we work together is one, just like more efficient, but we just like there's like a clear progression of things. Like, all right, we need to move better and throw harder. Okay, we did that. Okay, we need to like improve this pitch. Okay, we did that. Now we need to improve command and do this other thing. So like we're always iterating on what we're like working on. The difficult thing, but I think with stuff like intended zones and some of these other things, I think I did an interview for like the Baltimore Sun or something where I was just like, the difficult thing is like some of those things are like pretty hard to see in the season. Like, oh, did that actually improve? You know, like if we work on command in the off season, it can be kind of difficult in some cases to be like, did his command actually get better? Because you can't rely on like just like straight walk rate or something like that. But I think since we like, you know, retooled BB Ops, you know, a little while ago, before, you know, the great poaching of 2021 or whatever, we have systems now to check that stuff, to be like, all right, this actually did get better. And that's like the ultimate thing, because that's what I'm going to do at the end of this season when I sit down with Dillon and I'm just like, all right, we worked on these things. We worked on this pitch. We worked on improving command and these things. And like, this got better. This got better. This didn't. Or this got worse. We need to fix this all season, you know?
Do you want to talk about like how that's kind of driven some of your strategy, like especially on the kind of command plus monitoring, inside edge zone or intended zone stuff?
Yeah. So much like some of the other stuff we talked about, it all literally started with like a single athlete. The hypothetical example I gave about like an athlete who's like just during the season was like, my command's bad, I need to fix it. That literally happened. We literally had an athlete who was just like, I think at the, you know, the first month or two of the season, he had like the second highest walk rate, and you know, command was just like not good, and we like had to come up with a fix. And obviously it was my athlete. I watch every single game, and just watching like where the catcher had set up, I was just like, man, this person like already doesn't have, you know, Zach Greinke, Kyle Hendricks level command, and we just got like 50-50 ball strike setups all the time. You know, and I was just like, that can't be good or the best way to approach this. So what we did is, I can't remember how many starts he had at the time, how many appearances, but we just literally tracked like targeting for every pitches he threw up until that point. And we got
I remember that.
average miss distance, we got like target aggressiveness, we got all of these things. And we found that like, I think he was in like the 30th percentile in terms of like target aggressiveness or like command runs. Basically he was like the aggressiveness of his, like the catcher setups were just like really aggressive. And he was and on top of that, all of the targets were in the spots that like he had his worst command. Like he was barely targeting like the upper part of the strike zone, where he like commands it pretty well with his heater. And there was just like a lot of things that just like, with that information, we were just like, oh shit, if we could just rethink about how this person like strategizes his targeting and stuff, would probably pay like huge dividends. And like his miss distance was like, you know, for someone with his stuff plus, I think So like 13 and a half inches on average of miss distance, which is like a decent amount, but for someone who has like really big stuff, that's fine. But this person was missing like 2 inches more than that or whatever. So the plan was just like, okay, let's create a targeting strategy that's like a stuff plus adjusted targeting strategy. Yeah. So like if someone has really good stuff plus numbers, their targeting aggressiveness should be like much less. You know, they should have more middle setups, or at least be like less aggressive early in the count, and then maybe get more aggressive if they get in like a leverage count or whatever. So we literally just did that. I literally just like told this athlete, like, look, let's get with the catcher, let's get with the org, and especially early in the counts, let's set up middle, and then like if we get to 0-2, 1-2, we can be a little bit more aggressive, but let's set up middle. Your stuff is really good. You know, this person has like elite stuff. So we could do that. And then like, again, it's an N of 1, but like literally the next start, it's just like 7 innings, no walks, punches out 10s.
I remember that. I was
first
like,
now
like, we do small sample sets.
It was just like incredible. And then we obviously like iterated on that strategy and like got a little bit more aggressive with the targeting as he gained more confidence. But like what we saw is like miss distance goes down. I think in like, from like July on, he had like one of the lowest walk rates. Like it was incredible. And that whole thing just spurred like, oh, like there's we could do this with other people.
Yeah.
How can we get this? And
this is the future.
Immediately we're just like, let's look into getting intended zones and like leverage that. We got that. Now we have a ton of insights like in regards to command. We created our own, you know, command metric.
The Command Plus report I just saw for the first time in a while, like a couple weeks ago. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We go
so much.
So granular in that.
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But like it produced a ton of insights. Me and the rest of the staff have now like used some sort of targeting strategy with multiple guys. I know you guys had Langan on and he talked about it a little bit. We created an intended zone tracker out of that. Yeah. And then that is like the genesis for like actually trying command training in the off season. Like, because we had that this past off season, I was like, I'm going to try this and see if it improves command, because now we have a way to measure it in gym, out of gym, all of those things. But yeah, it's been just like anything. Started with one athlete, worked incredibly well, forced us to face a problem that we've never had to solve before. We solve it, and then we can apply that solution and those processes and systems to like other athletes. And for anybody that like, you know, for you guys, if you saw, you know, the weird shit I draw on the plyo wall when Tate throws, like Tate's a good example of like a dude that we just tried some command stuff with this offseason. I really, and it just goes into what Chris talked about and some of the intended zone stuff. I just really wanted to test this hypothesis of like, what happens if like every throw has a target? Like if every single throw you make like has a purpose. Like I know that is like been said for decades by every coach in the world. My dad used to tell me all the time, always throw to a target or throw to a spot or like throw with good intentions every time. But like, it's really hard to do that. You know, when you're making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of throws.
Yeah, it just gets monotonous.
Yeah. So I just was like, I want to see if I just like force an athlete, which not really force, like Tate wants to do it. But like, if I just like make an athlete throw to a target every single time, what happens? And then like we gamify it right on the wall. If you've seen, he gets 4 different targets, and we just like play games during his like plyo stuff, because he's been here for a while. So I want to make the training a little bit more engaging. So, you know, I may like change the distance on his pivot picks. We may do one set where like he picks, and the 4 targets are different colors. So the first set, he's going to tell me, I'm going to go purple, blue, red. And then the second set, I may tell him where I want him to throw it. And then we would get more specific. I'd be like, all right, I want this throw. I want this step back to hit the purple, and it's got to be above 75 miles.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I feel like we have to like, you know, a lot of people talk about hitting spots or whatever, but you have to have multiple goals, or else you're just going to optimize for your one thing that you're tracking, or the one thing you care about. Like if you don't say that velo thing ever, and you're just like, this off season, like we wouldn't do this in the gym, but like if your one goal was command and we didn't track anything else to see if it was going down or whatever, like it would be easy for somebody, maybe not a big leaguer, but an athlete, to optimize for command, and then they lose like 2 miles an hour in their fastball, or a mile an hour in their fastball, and then it's like, okay, well, kind of counteracts. But
Yeah, and like we can even do. I even messed around with doing some stuff with like pulse too. As like it's like, hey, let's get this ball in the red, and arm speed's got to be above this or whatever. Like there's a ton of different ways to do it, but I really just wanted to like test the limits of like, what if this dude just does all of his training for the entire offseason and literally 99% of the throws he makes have a target.
Yeah.
Catch play doesn't matter all the time, and let's just like, I don't know. Let's just see what happens. I just like always felt like if you just did that, there's just like no way you're not gonna get better at throwing the ball where you want to. But like I think it's just really hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're making hundreds of throws. You know how easy it is to just like screw off and just like not even pay attention and just like
dude, especially here.
Yeah, when it's into a net or against a wall or whatever, like it doesn't matter where it goes.
During the season or like when it's like, oh, it's a recovery day. I veloed yesterday. I feel like pretty shitty. It's just like, like,
I have not thrown to a person since last July. Like,
I was gonna say I was like, dude, me and you on the beach and out.
No, but I just like, I mean, I've thrown a lot. Like we should count actually all my pulse throws, but literally all of them here have just like been into a wall or a net as of late. Hopefully that changes next week. Get some live ABs, but yeah, it's so easy, especially here, to just like you play catch into a net. It's almost kind of a shock too the first time you do it because the person's over there and you're like, oh fuck. I don't know if I can. You're 20 feet away. I don't know if I can. Like heads up.
Yeah, and on top of that, Tate's throwing, sinkers that are running 20 inches or whatever. So like, but like, that it's funny you say that because like one of the other things we did is like he only threw to a person.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah,
like I would go to the field or go outside or whatever. Part of the reason I bought a catcher's glove this year so I don't get my hand broken or whatever. But like, but yeah, like. Stuff like that, like we can only do that if we've like developed a way to also like check it in training. So like we did, we did intended zone stuff with him this off season. We're getting intended zone data from him, so we can actually go back and see like, did this do anything or whatever. And it's not like it was gonna make him worse. So at the end of the year, if I go back and I'm just like, oh, his command like kind of stayed the same, that's fine. Like I didn't, we didn't do anything that would like make it worse, and we still accomplished what we wanted. And but I think that's just like the command thing just stands out because as like something new and exciting, because it's still like, I don't want to say it's like the holy grail of it, but it's still like the thing that is like not solved. Anyone who's just like, oh, I have this program that improves command for sure, is just like, you don't. You just don't. You're probably not even actually measuring it, because if you're simply relying on like walk rates or in zone percentage or whatever, that's not enough, man. Like missed distance is probably the best way to go, and that's like what we've shifted everything to.
It's interesting because one of the things I learned when we kind of started working on command that surprised me is how high like the average or the median missed distance on a bunch of pitches are. From my mind, I just like always had a thought like, okay, like this guy's an elite pitcher, so he can probably command it pretty well, but actually like there's a lot of room to improve for a lot of people. And I was gonna say that's what Langan talked about too, right? He had Cole just do almost all intended zones work.
Yeah, even the insights gained from the intended zone data is like, we could see like, all right, like, is it easier to command a big sweeper or like a gyro ball? Yeah. Because like even that is super valuable, because if you have a guy that has shit command and has a big sweeper, maybe it makes sense to like shift it to like a more gyro slider. If he can still throw it hard and all of those things to like command it better, maybe it makes like, is it true that like harder breaking balls are maybe easier to command or sharper breaking balls or whatever? Like I have an athlete last year where that's literally what we did. He had a big sweeping slider, and I just told him like, look, rip it as hard as you can. And if we sacrifice a couple inches of movement, but we're trading better command and 2 miles an hour, still like plenty good.
And the location differences too. You talked about it, like maybe at this part of the zone, his command's way worse. It's like that alone, like if you can develop a plan around that, like your command doesn't need to get any better to get way better. To perform way better in the game.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And again, like I think that's also kind of bled into how we like somewhat the assessment process. Like we've built out, like Chris mostly and Juan like built out a Like much like we have a baseline arsenal analysis for athletes that maybe we don't have like a ton of TrackMan data or our minor leaguer, we now have that same exact thing for command.
Yeah.
So when an athlete comes in, we know, or we can get, you know, in relatively short order, like average miss distance on different pitches. And it just helps us evaluate where the lowest hanging fruit is and how we want to go about attacking that. Because to me, that's the way I look at it, is like their targeting and command strategy should be like stuff adjusted, you know?
Oh, yeah,
This guy
100%.
has like crazy high big stuff, like his shit is unreal. Well, then like he just needs to get it in the zone.
Yeah.
Is his stuff really bad? And is it going to be really difficult to make it significantly better without just like adding velo? All right, then we probably need to like come up with a very strict targeting strategy or actually train command. Is he somewhere in the middle? And now we have an assessment just like we do for their arsenal that we can utilize like to find those things out. We have a way to continuously track it over the entire training process. And yeah, I think we're just scratching the surface with command stuff.
Yeah, I think there's two things I feel like on that really struck me doing stuff with Langen and like pitch design this off season, because previously whenever I've done pitch design here, for the most part, just like messing around on things, it's always just been shape focused, you know, just like try to get the most movement or maximize stuff plus specifically and all that. But now just having that element during all the PD sessions that I've been doing with Langen of like tracking the intended zones and my miss distance, it's just another element of like, shit, you know, that sweeper, it's a better like stuff plus profile. I'm getting way more, but like I can't put it where I want. And so that just even thinking about that, I feel like is correcting a bit. And then the other thing that you were kind of talking about with like the zone stuff is, and Lane just, I'm sure because of experience, does a really good job being like, okay, so with this movement profile, like early in the count, there's probably like 2 specific areas that you'd want to focus on. When you try to like, you know, go down an arm side, your miss distance is just like trash. Like you can't do that at all. But when we're going for like the up and glove side location, like your nail's there. And so already in my head, I have like an idea of like, okay, like, you know, I'm probably just going to lean in towards what I'm already good at with it for this specific like pitch and shape thing.
Pioneer League hitters are gonna be scared, bro. This coming season, they have no idea what's coming.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, we compare that with some of our other stuff, like you know, we track like sleep and a lot of biometric stuff for our like advantage plan athletes. And we've done some small analysis with a couple athletes, and like we found some like, you know, pretty interesting stuff. You know, not a surprise that like with the athletes we did run the analysis on, like if you sleep better or more, you know, you throw harder, you command it better. But like there's still a lot of like untapped stuff.
There. For sure.
It's like getting the off the field stuff now too. Just getting further and further.
Yeah, like I said, it that's the biggest thing. It's just like challenged like more the art of pitching than the science, you know, like you have to deal with guys going through a slump and like how does he slip? I mean, literally, you know, part of, again, it all starts
guys getting
with
broken up with. In that case, just go glove side. You
all-
do command arm side, bro. You just got broken up
the
with.
whole genesis behind like having athletes use like a whoop strap or an aura ring or like pushing that and providing that to like some advantage plan athletes is, again, just goes back to like a singular athlete who like recovery is really important for this athlete. And like you know, he had a good outing, but like stuff was down. He felt really sluggish. And then I just like dug into like, all right, tell me about like the environment that you sleep in. What kind of bed do you have? What you're bedding like? What's the temperature in the room? And then finding out from like that athlete, like, oh, it's like 73 in the room. I have this like shitty bed. I play like video games super late at night, and it's just like, all right, we need to revamp it. Buy these blackout curtains, buy this eye mask, and like that literally happened with an athlete of mine. And then we're just like, oh, you're gonna get fitted with this strap, and we're gonna monitor sleep, and then this will be a way to kind of like hold yourself accountable, and we can like see if there's any trends. And then that just worked really well. Athlete loved it, and then we're just like, oh, why aren't we doing this for all of our guys?
It's becoming normal on like the internet too. You shared a post with me about not specifically sleep, but just like workload in general, things outside of the game, things that we don't see as fans or whatever, like Kershaw getting pulled early. Like there was a lot of people saying like, what the fuck are we doing? But he came out and said like, yeah, I just wasn't ready for like 100. My stuff was way down, all these things. And then somebody responded to, I forget who they like pushed back an appearance a day or something, and was like, somebody quoted it and said just like, yeah, I saw a post a while ago about how like workloads weight, like even within the game. We just talked to Nick Martinez. There's the throws in between innings. There's just throws before the games.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, and it's just like
PFPs. Don't sleep on those. Pickoffs.
That's right.
And it's just, it's so hard to simulate game-like intensity in any training environment when you're a pro.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like impossible.
Yeah.
We try really hard, and I think we do a really good job, especially when we're mocapping guys, to like, get them to push it and throw hard.
Pump
but
it
like
up.
I remember, you mentioned Kershaw, but I like literally remember talking to him when I was working with him, and him just saying like I remember, I think like I talked to him after one bullpen, and he was like, I was like 88, 89. That's pretty good for me. And I was like, great. And he was just like, there's just no way I can throw hard with no one there. There's just no hitter in the bottom, and that's like what we've heard from every athlete. It's just like almost it's almost the flip of, it's almost like the flip from amateur athletes. Amateur athletes just like throw really hard in the lab because they're so jazzed up.
I'm here for that number.
Yeah.
Get that out.
Meanwhile, like pros are just like,
I've been in the World Series. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 10 people here. I'm used to throwing in Yankee Stadium or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to replicate that, and maybe that doesn't come up on like pulse and stuff necessarily, but like there's certainly something to just like a different intensity to like an actual game versus like here.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point.
Bill, I sleep on a mattress on the ground. What can I do to up my recovery?
Dude, I wouldn't even start there, man. There's lower hanging fruit. There's fruit that's like literally on the ground.
Yeah, and I'm eating it. What do you think I should do for my recovery?
The bed is like on one of the lower branches. Like there's other stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. That's why I turned down a past guest Max Engelbrecht's offer of a better bed. I was like, I literally told him, I was like, I'm not at a point in my life where I'm really too worried about what bed I sleep in.
But yeah, that again, especially when you're talking about elite dudes, they're trying to eke out every ounce of an advantage, and that can be a pretty big one, especially too baseball, like flying across the country and just like no days off in the condensed season, like it's just hard.
One general question I was gonna ask you. I mean, we kind of touched on this before, but why do you think? What do you think are things? Just talking generally, not any one team or front office. What do you think are things that MLB teams kind of like don't put enough weight on, or kind of come up short?
I think one of them, I guess, maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not, but I think most teams just like completely waste spring training.
Yeah.
Like completely waste spring training. Like, having been fortunate enough to like do some stuff with teams and be embedded in some different spring trainings, which fortunately those teams like did a good job. But I think like just generally, like you think about a normal spring training and it's just like a golden opportunity to do like really intricate pitch design work, to do command stuff,
improve yourself.
And none of
love this take.
They just don't do that. Like for most teams, again, very generally speaking, it's not this way for all teams. I'm sure, Dodgers, Stros, like a lot of teams do stuff, but like most teams, especially on the minor league side, where there is maybe not as many resources dedicated to them, it's just about getting the pitch count up. That's like all it is. It's just like you got to throw your 10 bullpens or whatever. Yeah. And it's just like, man, there's just so many opportunities. And just imagine how that extends their like training time.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I knew that like, if I'm going to put someone through a pitch design phase, the last 3 weeks of that phase can be in spring training, then like maybe I can put them through a second velo phase, or we could be more aggressive with their lifting up front because the time window we have to train them is much longer. But like the reality is when most guys go to spring training, like it's just you throw 25 pitches this one, and you throw 45 this next one, and
it's all set, right? It's and it's like pretty universal.
And look, there's a lot of nuance there. It's hard to manage that many guys throwing, and there's a lot of nuance. But like I just think there's so much latent productivity.
Dude, I think it goes beyond
in spring training. It's crazy. I have this is probably multiple athletes, but like I have an athlete who like didn't throw a pitch on a piece of pitching tech, like didn't have a single pitch track, like didn't know how anything was moving until like his first live in spring training. Dude. Which is just like crazy, like luckily for him, like he's really good, and we did a lot of work in the off season. But like, what if he was like working on a specific pitch, trying to make a specific pitch better? Well, now he's just like has no idea. Is it like going back off the rails? Is it where I want to be?
Just like a waste of time.
Yeah, I just think there's like a lot of missed opportunities in spring training to like do actual skill development, and the focus is too much on just like, well, let's get there,
break a sweat.
Yeah, let's get their workload right. And look, like I said, there's a lot of nuance to that when you're talking about like players that are I don't know, from cold weather states where they're inside, or like you know, from other countries where like it's maybe tough to communicate, or you're unsure how much throwing they're actually doing. There's definitely some nuance there, and there is a need to like build the workload up. But like, I still just think there's no dedicated pitch design stuff, command stuff. Like, there's just not enough skill development stuff when you have these guys with your whole staff there with all the tools. No, dude, I just think it's like a huge wasted opportunity, man.
I fucking love that take. I mean, one of the things that I caught flack for on Twitter, I think like a couple of years ago, was I think it goes beyond the workload stuff too. My favorite thing in spring training when it finally gets started, or right after pitchers and catchers report, is like one of the first videos that like teams and accounts put out are like pitchers doing PFPs. And like dry rep stuff, and I always just lose my mind seeing that, because I'm like,
oh, I think I remember this tweet or whatever.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Yeah, because it was just like looking at it, it's like, okay, nice. We have these elite $1 million asset athletes. They're finally here to start working, and what are we gonna do? Let's make sure that they know where first base is. Yeah, they like literally hasn't moved ever. So we're just gonna waste like the first few hours of their day, or however long it is, you know, and start doing PFPs. And I think. I don't know if schedules have kind of changed, but I wouldn't be surprised if like PFPs and stuff like that are still super, super prevalent. Like every day in spring training, all that stuff. It's just like, dude, I can't imagine like if anyone actually did like a gains analysis or anything on like pitching fielding percentage and all that stuff, how much there actually would be. Like if you could just didn't do PFPs in the spring and you only just took a guy and focused on like the other assets of like really working on pitch shaping, things like command, all that other stuff, like that's the stuff that they should be doing, not like dry rep PFPs as much. I feel, or there's probably a time and a place for like a little bit, or just like a check, like, okay, nice, you still know where first base is, good, let's like get out of there kind of a thing. But it's just like way too skewed, especially on the college side.
Yeah, I always thought of it like, you know, if an athlete came here and his breaking ball was shit, and we wanted to dedicate 4 weeks to making it better, it would get pretty, like, if the athlete was like, you know, he hadn't already reached his ceiling for that particular pitch, which is like is a thing, and we had like 4 weeks to do some pitch design stuff, which by the way is also a bullpen. You know, they're also is also like progressing their workload in a lot of ways. Like, how much better would it get?
Right.
And like, how much of that is
you've
not,
got 4 weeks to work on
or however long. You know, you're talking about minor leaguers that are maybe an extended.
That's true.
You may have more time or whatever. I just think like there's probably a better way to configure spring training to allocate more training economy to like actual skill development than is being done by most teams. And again, I understand that that's really hard because
on that scale.
It just requires like change too, like
is
large
doing
scale
infinite
fundamental
PFPs
change.
and like first and third defense is dumb, sure, but it also is necessary.
Yeah,
like you just are not gonna stick around on a big league roster if you like can't hold runners, if your time to home is just insane, if you like can't field your position like at least average. So like all that stuff is like definitely important, but the idea that like the base of spring training, and you even hear it in the rhetoric, like, oh, you know, shorten spring training, shorten spring is workload. He's like, yo, he had the entire offseason to
just
throw.
use spring training.
You know, if a guy didn't throw in the offseason enough, you're not fixing it in 4 weeks of spring training. Like he's already kind of screwed, you know. But I just think, again, I don't know if it's really like a hot take or whatever, but I just think that there's just like a ton of opportunities to actually develop skills that translate on the field in spring training that just don't get taken advantage of enough.
And like no specific focus too. Like how can you think?
Exactly.
Every single person needs the exact same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Regardless of what they did during the offseason or how good of pitchers they are or what their strengths and weaknesses are. Just crazy.
Yeah. And part of it I understand too is probably like a manpower thing. Like, do you have enough people to work with all of these players? Because you're talking
like a logistics thing.
Yeah, you're talking about 8 dudes throwing a bullpen at one time. But it's also a knowledge based thing too. If you don't have a couple capable coaches running pitch designs or like understand enough to how to like do that technical work, then you just can't do it anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't have people on staff that like can actually do that, like if you don't have our, a staff made up similar to ours, where like every one of our staff could run a really high level pitch design, then like it's going to be hard to do that. But like, I just think teams could have a huge advantage if they're just like, they're literally adding 4 weeks of additional skill development or 3 weeks or whatever,
Yeah. Focus on the individual's needs. And I agree.
Yeah. Especially too, in spring training is where you have like the most focused tech. There's never going to be a time.
It's safe.
Yeah. Exactly.
They could go out in a game and just like give up runs, or if they're on like a backfield, you could just roll it.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the one time where you could have like a live A/B setting.
Force them to use the pitch that you're working on more.
Yeah. Give them some feedback while they're playing.
Yeah.
Like,
you're also never going to have a time where like, you're going to have a setup of like 4 edgetronics and 4 trackmen.
Yeah.
Like, you're not ever going to have that, maybe at the big league level, but like, there's just a lot of opportunities, I think, to do skill development stuff and in spring training. And that I think teams are just like whiffing a lot on. But again, it's, I understand it's pretty nuanced and complicated, but I think it's worth the changing of the guard in that sense to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, changing guard is huge. I mean, even just in terms of like who is in what position in MLB teams.
Yeah.
Like, that's what struck out at me when I first started working in baseball. And I mean, this applies to sports in general and other position or other industries, but a lot of it is like what you've done in the past versus like what you're doing now.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the big thing beyond a lot of stuff with, specifically with things like PFPs, first and third. Yeah. Definitely more so at the college level, that's kind of just like is what it is kind of a thing. Like it's kind of just assumed that, we got to work on that and all those things, instead of trying to get better. And it just takes a lot of time for those changes and stuff.
Yeah.
You saw it on the hitting side with like the way BP has kind of changed, the way hitters, get reps, more like high velo machines, stuff like that. People start to realize like how valuable, those type of things could be.
Yeah, I think honestly, hitting and pitching is like, almost flipped in that sense. I think at least the experiences I've had, like hitting seems to like hitting and like just talking to players and stuff as well. Being in Arizona helped just getting exposed to a lot more big league hitters or whatever. I think like it's just commonplace in spring training to do like more technical swing work, and like that could be a focus. Whereas like on the pitching side, it's like it's always just about, we got to get the pitch count up. We got to get the pitch count up. Well, how about we do that and do other stuff that like makes the athlete better, Like I always just like thought in my head, again, understand there's like coordination with other departments. There's a lot of moving parts. So it's not as easy as this, but like if you just think about like all of your minor league pitchers, if you just spent 3-4 weeks doing like dedicated pitch design stuff with those guys in that time period, how many of those guys have like their breaking ball go from like 35 grade to 45 grade?
Yeah.
A decent amount. How valuable is that? Like how much surplus value have you generated? An insane amount.
Yeah. I'd imagine it's probably pretty easy to like overemphasize just the workload aspect of it because of how many like spring injuries or spring setbacks there are, whatever, because that's like, especially from the business perspective, like they care so much about that. That's probably what they hear about a lot, like we got to make sure that our guys don't get hurt the first like 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
So like that would be, I don't know, but it's not like you can't do both, but
yeah, exactly. And I think that's like also just part of baseball, just stuck in like, you can only do one thing. I mean, we in some ways like have that same thing where it's just like, oh, we're going to do velo and then we're going to do command stuff and then we're going to do pitch design and then we're going to throw live. It's like, why can't we just like combine a lot of those? Why can't we do like velo training but also have like command elements in it? Why can't we like do pitch design but you're also throwing lives? Because
I think on a micro scale, you probably have to kind of narrow the focus, but there's no reason you can't like find a way that a training program addresses 2 different needs over a 6-week period or whatever. Like you probably don't want to have 2 different one session where an athlete's thinking about 3 different cues or whatever.
Yeah,
100%. But like over a few week period, like that's being creative with it. Absolutely possible.
That kind of reminds me, actually. I think it was when we were talking to Eno, or maybe something else. Maybe I read it during the lockout thing when they were talking about like why the players wanted less spring training, right? Like I'm pretty sure that the players were in the camp of like
Yes.
wanting a shorter spring training kind of a thing. And it definitely makes sense because maybe it was, that was talking about spring training originally was super important because like back then no one did anything in the off season. They were just, drinking beers and getting out of shape. And so it was like super essential for like everyone to show up at some point and like get back in shape. Whereas nowadays people are staying in shape and like training all off season and just like constantly working, where the athletes feel like we don't need that much time. So that's like an interesting perspective, but really the org should just be looking at it as like,
times have changed.
Spring training isn't just like we're expecting you to show up 10, 15 pounds out of weight and, maybe you haven't swung or thrown all off season. And instead, like, let's get ready.
If you do, that's great. Then you just focus on pitch count or whatever. Like, there are plenty of people that's doing them a disservice.
And you can also have like an intake assessment that like somewhat identifies some of those things. Like,
or just like have a piece of tech that tracks your workload over the off season.
You could do that. You could do that. But like, I understand with like some international players and stuff, it can be tough. But like, you can have an intake system. Like we see it here. Like guy, a guy come in and we'll just be like, oh, this guy's not ready to throw. Like this guy can't.
Even strength stuff like off force play. Like, okay, this guy.
100%. So like you can have an intake assessment like, oh, okay, the focus does need to be on like workload stuff because like this is going to be on the active roster and he's got to pitch in games like pretty soon.
When was the last time you threw a baseball? Okay. Maybe we're not going to mocap today.
Not necessarily like a hot take, but like I just think there's like a ton of low-hanging fruit and missed opportunities by like shifting the focus of spring training into more skill development.
Median missed opportunities.
Yeah, that's fire.
We should probably wrap this one or longer
pods. Yeah, we're deep in.
Well,
shit, thanks for coming on, Bill.
Man. Thanks for having me. You have been Langan on 3 times. I got to catch up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 2 of them was out with me though. With me, you and Langan are 1-1.
That's true. That's
3 times. Jesus. We got to catch up.
Episode 80.
Wait, technically 4, right? We forgot to record one?
Ghost episode. Ghost episode, dude.
The ghost episode was so good, man. God damn it.
Yeah.
I think this one's recording though, so we're good.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Episode 80. Peace.
Thanks, guys.